I am 68 years old, and I am about to tell you something that might surprise you. 3 years ago, at 65, I left my husband after 30 years of marriage, and it was the hardest and most honest decision I have ever made. I know what you're thinking. 30 years. That's not a marriage, that's a life. Why would a woman leave after 3 decades? She must be going through something. She must be selfish. She must have lost her mind at 65. Maybe that's what it looked like from the outside. But from the inside, I hadn't said a real word to my own husband in almost 10 years, and nobody, not one person, had noticed. If you're sitting in a quiet marriage right now, telling yourself it's too late, that you've already given too many years to turn back now, I need you to hear this. I believed that same lie for a very long time, but before I tell you why I finally left, I have to tell you why I stayed so long, because that's the part nobody ever asks about. Everybody wants to know what made me go. Almost nobody asks what made me stay. Before I answer that, I want to say something, because I have a feeling some of you watching are sitting in a quiet house right now, maybe even a quiet marriage, wondering if what you're feeling is even allowed to be talked about. It is. I talk about things like this every week on this channel. The parts of getting older that nobody prepares us for. The honest parts. Not the greeting card version. If that's the kind of company you want on this journey, hit subscribe now, because I promise you, you are going to want to hear where this story goes. Okay, let me take you back to the beginning. I married my husband when I was 35. Not young by 1980s standards, but not old either. He was steady, reliable. The kind of man who fixed things before you even asked him to. My mother liked him immediately, which back then felt like a blessing from God himself. We built a good life, on paper. 2 kids, a modest house we paid off early, family vacations to the same lake every August, because that's what he liked, and I never thought to argue. I taught elementary school for 26 years. I loved my students the way you love something that gives you a reason to get up every single day. For a long time, I told myself we were happy. We didn't fight. We didn't raise our voices. Looking back now, I understand that not fighting isn't the same thing as being okay. Sometimes it just means 2 people gave up trying to reach each other a long time ago, and silence became easier than the disappointment of trying and failing again. I can't tell you the exact day the silence started, because it didn't arrive all at once. It crept in, the way water finds a crack in a foundation, slow enough that you don't notice the damage until the whole wall is compromised. It started small. He stopped asking about my day. I stopped offering it. He started eating dinner in front of the television instead of at the table with me. I started staying up later, reading in bed, just to have a few hours that felt like they belonged to me and no one else. By the time our youngest left for college, we were 2 people sharing a house, a mortgage, and a last name, but almost nothing else. We'd sit in the same room some evenings, him with the news on, me with a book, and I remember thinking, this is what the rest of my life looks like. Just this. Just quiet rooms and polite distance, until one of us dies first. I want to be honest with you. I didn't leave because he was cruel. He never raised a hand to me, never said a truly hateful word. If he had, I think leaving would have been easier, in a strange way, because at least then I could point to something and say, that, right there, that's why. Instead, I spent years trying to explain a decision that didn't have a single dramatic reason behind it. Just 30 years of 2 people slowly forgetting how to see each other. The moment that changed everything happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing special about it. I was making that same breakfast, 2 eggs, dry toast, black coffee, and I looked over at him reading the paper, and I asked myself a question I had never once let myself ask in 3 decades of marriage, if I died tonight, would he even really miss me? Or would he just miss having someone make his eggs? I stood there with a spatula in my hand, and I started crying, right there at the stove, and he didn't even look up from the paper. He didn't notice. 30 years of marriage, and my own husband didn't notice his wife crying 6 feet away from him. That was the moment I understood, with a clarity that scared me, that I had disappeared somewhere along the way. Not all at once. Slowly, quietly, the way a woman disappears when she spends 30 years making herself smaller and smaller, so the peace in the house never gets disturbed. I didn't leave that week. I want to be honest about that too, because I think it's important. Leaving a 30-year marriage isn't a door you walk through. It's a hallway you crawl down, inch by inch, terrified the whole time. I spent almost a year quietly preparing. I got my own bank account for the first time since 1991. I talked to a lawyer just to understand my options, not because I'd decided anything yet. I started seeing a therapist, telling her things I had never said out loud to another human being, including the fact that I sometimes fantasized about a life that was entirely, completely my own. My daughter was the one who finally said what I couldn't say to myself. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd made 10,000 breakfasts, and she said, "Mom, I love Dad, but I have watched you shrink for years. When did you stop existing in this house?" I didn't have an answer for her, and that, more than anything else, was the answer. I told my husband on a Sunday afternoon. I'd rehearsed it 100 times in the shower, in the car, in the mirror. When it finally came out, it wasn't dramatic. I simply said, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think either of us has been happy for a very long time, and I think we've both just been too afraid to say it." He didn't yell, he didn't cry, not at first. He just sat very still for a long time, and then he said, "I thought this was just what marriage looks like after 30 years. And honestly, that sentence broke my heart more than any argument ever could have, because I think he genuinely believed that. I think a lot of people believe that. That silence and distance are just the natural, unavoidable price of growing old together. I packed 2 suitcases. Not because that's all I owned after 30 years, but because that's all I felt like I was allowed to take without feeling like I was stealing from a life that had, in fairness, also been mine. The first few months were the loneliest of my entire life, and I want to say that honestly because I think too many stories about leaving skip straight to the empowering part, the sunrise yoga, the best decision I ever made speech. That part came. But first came something much harder. I moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment. I remember sitting on the floor the first night because I didn't have furniture yet, eating cereal out of the box, and crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Not because I regretted leaving, because I had spent 30 years building an identity around being someone's wife, and now, at 65 years old, I had to figure out who I was when nobody needed their eggs made in the morning. Some of my friends didn't understand. One of them actually said to me, "But he never hit you, never cheated on you. What more do you want at your age?" And I remember feeling so ashamed in that moment. Like maybe I was being ungrateful. Maybe I was throwing away something I should have been satisfied with. It took me a long time, and a lot of quiet nights, to understand that a marriage can be peaceful and still be a kind of starvation. You can be fed every single day and still be starving for the thing that actually nourishes you, which is being truly seen by another person. I'm not going to sit here and tell every woman watching this that leaving is always the right answer. I don't believe that, and I think it would be irresponsible of me to say it. Some marriages that go quiet can find their way back, with work, with honesty, with 2 people willing to fight for each other again, instead of just existing beside each other. But I will tell you this: silence is not peace. I spent years confusing the two, telling myself that because we weren't screaming at each other, we must be okay. Real peace doesn't feel like holding your breath for 30 years. Real peace doesn't require you to disappear a little more every single day just to keep the household calm. I also won't pretend the ending is simple. My husband and I are not enemies. We speak sometimes, mostly about our children and grandchildren. There's a strange kind of grief in that too, mourning a person who is still alive, still kind, just no longer yours. I don't think that grief ever fully goes away. I've made peace with carrying it. Here's what I know now, 3 years into this new life, that I wish somebody had told me at 40, at 50, even at 60. It is never too late to ask yourself if you still exist inside your own life. Not your role, not your responsibilities. You, the actual woman underneath 30 years of eggs and dry toast and turned-up television volume. I went back to painting last year, something I hadn't touched since college. I take a pottery class on Thursday nights with women half my age who somehow understand me better than people who've known me for decades. I eat breakfast in silence sometimes still, but now it's a silence I chose, sitting by my own window, drinking my coffee exactly the way I like it, sweet, with too much cream, the way he always said was wrong. I am not going to tell you my life is perfect now. Some nights are still very lonely, but I will tell you it is mine. Fully, completely mine, for the first time since I was 35 years old. And there is a kind of peace in that, a real one, that 30 years of quiet breakfasts never gave me. If you are sitting in your own silence right now, whatever that looks like for you, I want you to know you are not ungrateful for noticing it, and you are not too old to do something about it. 65 is not the end of your story. I promise you that, from the other side of a decision I was terrified to make. If this story meant something to you, please tell me in the comments. How long have you been sitting in your own silence? And what is one small thing that made you finally notice it? I read every single comment, and I promise you, you are not alone in this room. If you know a woman who might need to hear this today, please share it with her. Sometimes the only thing that gives someone permission to leave a silence they've been living in is hearing that somebody else survived it too. And if you want more honest stories like this one, subscribe to this channel now. This is a place for real stories, told by real people, about the parts of growing older that nobody warns us about until we're standing right in the middle of them. Take care of yourselves, and however old you are, however long you've been quiet, it is not too late to be heard again, starting with yourself.